2 cases, 2 murders. That haunted California. 4 generations, 2 names. That became symbols of everything law enforcement couldn't solve: the Zodiac Killer, the Black Dahlia. What you're about to hear is not an official solution. It isn't a court ruling. It isn't a police announcement. It's a theory, but it may be one of the most disturbing theories ever proposed. In either case, because if it's true, then 2 of America's most infamous unsolved murder mysteries were committed by the same man. For decades, these cases existed in completely different worlds, different victims, different crime scenes, different investigations, different eras. One case began in Los Angeles. In 1947, the other terrorized Northern California. More than 20 years later, no detective officially linked them, and for more than half a century, nobody had a reason to believe they were connected at all. Until one man became obsessed with a code. Not a detective, not an FBI profiler, not a cryptographer, a man with autism. From West Virginia, armed with artificial intelligence, public records, and an obsession that consumed up to 20 hours a day, he looked at a 13-character cipher sent by the Zodiac Killer in 1970 and found a name nobody expected. And if his theory is correct, the answer to 2 of California's greatest mysteries may have been sitting in plain sight for nearly 80 years. Let's start at the beginning. January the 15th, 1947, Los Angeles, California. A woman walking through a vacant lot in Limit Park noticed what she thought was a broken department store mannequin lying in the grass. It wasn't a mannequin, it was the body of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short. She had been completely drained of blood, surgically bisected. At the waist, her face had been cut. From the corners of her mouth, a Glasgow smile. Carved with precision, her body had been washed clean and posed with deliberate care before being placed in that lot. No blood at the scene. No evidence of struggle. Whoever did this had taken their time, and whoever did this had surgical knowledge. The press called her the Black Dahlia. The case dominated headlines. America became obsessed. Everyone had a theory. Everyone had a suspect. And everyone was wrong. More than 150 suspects were investigated. Thousands of witnesses were interviewed. Confessions poured in. From attention seekers, opportunists, and disturbed individuals, none of them led to an arrest. Eventually, the case did what so many unsolved cases do. It went cold, and the mystery of Elizabeth Short slowly transformed into something larger than a murder investigation. It became a legend. 21 years later, California bled again. December the 20th, 1968, Lake Herman Road. Benicia, 2 teenagers, shot in a parked car. No witnesses, no motive. Then again, July 1969, Blue Rock Springs, another couple attacked. Then again, September 1969, Lake Berryessa, a man and a woman stabbed at a picnic table. And between the murders, letters, taunting, cryptic, theatrical letters sent to newspapers and police departments across California. I like killing people because it is so much fun. Signed with a crosshair symbol, signed as the Zodiac. He included ciphers, codes that investigators mathematicians, and amateur codebreakers would spend decades trying to crack. But there was another cipher, smaller, 13 characters, sent in April 1970. The Zodiac wrote, "My name is," followed by 13 symbols. That nobody could decode. For 50 years, that cipher sat unsolved. Enter Alex Baber, a 50-year-old man from West Virginia, diagnosed with autism. As a preteen, no law enforcement background, no cryptography degree, just an obsessive mind that once it locks onto something cannot let go. It's my autism. Once I start on something, I have to see it through. My mind's wired differently. Baber spent up to 20 hours a day on the code. For months at a time, he used AI programs to compile a list of every possible 13-letter name, which returned 71 million possibilities. 71 million. Became 185. 185. Became 14. 14. Became 1. The final name didn't belong to a celebrity. It didn't belong to a known serial killer. It didn't belong to anyone investigators had spent decades discussing on television. Instead, it pointed to a man almost nobody had heard of, a former Navy medic, a medical student, a husband, a father. His name was Marvin Margolis, and from that moment, the story became far stranger than anyone expected. Margolis was approximately 21 years old when he lived in Los Angeles with Elizabeth Short after her murder. He had been investigated by LAPT as a viable suspect, but here is the detail that almost nobody knows. Margolis lied to police about knowing Elizabeth Short. He denied the relationship, but witnesses confirmed they had been together, and yet he was cleared. His alibi came from his wife. They had married in December 1946, just weeks before the murder. She said he was home. He was questioned. He was not charged. He disappeared into ordinary life. He changed his name to Marvin Merrill. He moved. He worked. He grew old. He joined the US Navy in 1943 and served in the Pacific. As a medic, he was among the first wave of troops landing on Okinawa in April 1945. At one point, he was buried alive in a cave and forced to claw his way out 3 months after Okinawa. Margolis was diagnosed with tremulousness, recurring battle dreams, chronic tiredness, startled reactions, and periods of depression. After leaving the military, Margolis enrolled as a medical student at the University of Southern California. In 1946, his first task at the school was to dissect a human corpse. A war medic, a medical student, a man who had spent years learning how the human body comes apart. Elizabeth Short's body showed surgical precision. And then there is the sword. Baber's evidence includes a sword brought home by Margolis from his time serving in Japan, which he believes was used in the killing of 2 of the Zodiac victims, a Japanese military sword kept for decades, never explained. Then investigators discovered something they weren't expecting. Not a weapon, not a fingerprint, not a confession, a drawing. At first glance, it seemed completely ordinary, but the longer they looked, the stranger it became. In the last year of his life, 1992, Margolis made a drawing When investigators examined it through a high-resolution lens, they found the word Zodiac. Hidden inside, the drawing also showed marks that appeared to mimic the Glasgow smile, carved into Elizabeth Short's face. He was dying of cancer, investigators believe. He wanted to be found out. That he left this as a trail, knowing that if someone ever figured it out, the drawing would be the confession he never gave out loud. A dying man. A hidden word. A face carved into paper that matched a face. Carved into flesh. When Baber visited Margolis's surviving son and revealed his findings, the son immediately turned white. His hands started shaking. He reached across the table and grabbed Baber's hand, and then he said, "We are going to be okay." 3 words. Not denial. Not anger. Not shock. We are gonna be okay. The experts who reviewed Baber's work were not amateurs. Ed Giorgio, former chief codebreaker at the National Security Agency, said Baber's work checked out. Patrick Henry, another former NSA cryptomathematician, discovered that the Zodiac code was apparently generated using the keyword Elizabeth. Elizabeth, the first name of the Black Dahlia, hidden inside the Zodiac's own cipher. Baber himself put it simply, with all the connections, either he's the unluckiest man in the history of the world, in the wrong place, at the wrong time, every time, or he's the perpetrator. Retired lapsed homicide detective Rick Jackson said, "In my opinion, these are solved cases. There are too many links. With both, there's overwhelming circumstantial evidence. He's left breadcrumbs all along." But not everyone agrees. Larry Harnish, a former LA Times editor who has researched the Black Dahlia case since the 1990s, pointed to an lab report that says police interviewed and cleared Margolis. However, that report did not provide details of his alibi, and Margolis's son, despite that initial reaction, later publicly denied his father was responsible for either case. So we have 2 versions of the truth: a dying man who left a hidden word in a drawing, and a son who said, "We are going to be okay," before changing his story. Marvin Margolis died in July 1993. In his later years, he ran a restaurant in Atascadero and worked as an engineer at Intel in Santa Clara, a restaurant owner, a tech engineer, a neighbor, a father. He is buried at Riverside National Cemetery in California. There will never be a trial. There will never be a verdict. There will never be a jury deciding what really happened. Marvin Margolis took whatever secrets he had into the grave. So all we are left with is the evidence, the cipher, the witness statements, the military history, the medical training, the drawing, the coincidences, and the questions. So many questions. Maybe Alex Baber solved 2 of the greatest mysteries in American criminal history. Maybe he found a pattern where none existed, a mystery inside another mystery. Was Marvin Margolis hiding behind 2 of America's most infamous unsolved crimes? Or is this one of the most convincing false trails ever uncovered? Let me know in the comments. Because somewhere between a forgotten murder file, a dying man's drawing, and a 13-character cipher, the truth may still be waiting to be found. Subscribe to Rulik Enigmas and turn on the bell. Elizabeth Short deserved better, and so did every person the Zodiac Killer took. Say their names.